All right, we're recording. So I like to start with some of the knowns because for me it's important to be transparent about where I'm coming from and where the other person is coming from so that we can meet each other on a level playing field and then together walk into the unknown. So I'll start with my knowns of you. My known is based on one phone conversation that we've had. And I know that you lead circles or gatherings or hold space for primarily men, but women as well, to be vulnerable, to access themselves, to be open, to converse, communicate, and create community, but also to heal, I think, in a large way. And we'll dive into that. That's just my terrible way of describing it. But also my known is, interestingly enough, like me, you were a producer. And I find that really interesting. We have a mutual love for and of Montana. And that's pretty much it on a surface level, outside of hearing some of the men who have attended your EVRYMAN retreat talk wonders about you. So that's as far as I go. If
Cool.
you're willing to share your knowns about me, and then we'll continue.
Yeah, great. There's not a whole lot. You just sort of jogged my memory. So yeah, I know that you are stepping into the ring and stepping into the role of supporting people in, I guess my understanding of it at this point is through authenticity and vulnerability. And I don't know much more about that. I know you've done some of that work and you're developing that. Mm-hmm. I know, and I think this is accurate, that the podcast is fairly new too.
Sure, yeah.
Sort of. And yeah, that you, the production background that you worked, I think, in sports TV production, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you spent some time in a small town in Montana and fell in love with it. And the only other part I know of you is I've seen your social media accounts, and I know that you've bravely shared yourself and your struggles with the world, and seem to be actively doing that purposefully.
Wonderful. Thank you. That's so good. It's so freeing to just say that and not have to try to know more than what you know. So let's dive into the unknown then. How would you define the unknown?
Adventure, fun, the place I like to spend a good chunk of my time. I define it through my experience as like a charged feeling of fear and excitement, sort of like, getting off the plane in a new country or a new place I've never been, or hiking into the woods or the mountains in some place I've never been. It's a very enlivening feeling. That's how I define it. Yeah.
So I suppose then, based on that definition, which is a very unique definition, most people tend to lean into fear versus excitement and adventure. What are some of the unknowns that you're currently facing in your life?
Well, in 4 weeks, my wife is due with our second boy. And that's, it's like a known, right? We know that is happening, but all of the details of it, of what it means to be a dad to more than one child, of who the hell this kid's being is that's coming into our family, that's a big unknown. Another big unknown is where this professional experience is headed, how EVRYMAN is going to grow, if it's going to grow, when it's going to grow, what that means in terms of security and stability for myself and my family. That's a big unknown. Those are the biggest ones that come up first.
So I'd like to unpack some of that. I myself have not experienced having children or being a parent. And I think it's interesting to hear that even though you've experienced raising one child and having one child, raising one child, there are still certain unknowns about doing the same exact thing, which is good to hear, because I think a lot of times people forget how well equipped we are in handling changes in our life. So I'd love to hear a little bit about, if you can expand on why there is that unknown if you've done it before.
Well, yeah, the biggest part is that the process of having a child has been the most remarkable thing to be a part of, not in the practical way, not in just, what it means and how we live, but literally being present to another human, literally like forming, right? It's the most, is swearing appropriate or
yes,
inappropriate?
Of course.
It's a mind fuck. Like it's a complete and utter sustained mind fuck to see and feel and love and be with the forming of a being, of his personality, of his life, of everything, and that is the biggest unknown with the second one. It's a question like, who is it? Who's this kid? I don't know. Well, there's no way to know yet. I mean, we can imagine, we can slow down, we can intuit, we can start to maybe feel, but laying next to my beautiful wife, and her belly is literally just like, it's like there's a giant dance party going on in there. It's like, what? Like, this is so bizarre. This is like so science fiction. This is so strange that there's a human in your stomach, and it's going to come out. It's going to have a person. It's going to be a person. It's going to have everything that you and I had. I mean, it's like, oh my God, talk about an unknown. I mean, it could be anything, literally anything. Like, it could impact my life and our family's life in any million, billion ways, like infinite ways. Who knows? Who knows what's going to happen?
It's interesting because it's a full surrender, and almost like a forced surrender. The most practical way of letting go of control.
It's my favorite way, forced surrender. I love it. Yeah, that's...
Is there any part of you that also sees the change in relationship with your first child as an unknown as well?
Yes, definitely, but less so. Just because we've been talking about it a lot. We've been in conversation with him since the conception of the second, right? So I can picture that more. I can picture that, especially in the first chunk of the new one's life, I'm going to step up and spend more time and do more direct care of Duke, our older one. And I mean, yeah, absolutely. He'll be a sibling. That whole dynamic will be inserted into our lives. I don't know what that means or what that looks like. But yeah, he'll be, a toddler is forcing a toddler to surrender is a little trickier, I think, than an adult who's, willing to do it. So yeah, it's going to be interesting for sure.
I'm curious to hear a little bit about what these conversations with Duke have been like, because I think it'll be a nice segue into the work that you do with men. So what does that look like?
Well, it looks really straightforward. It's that, you know, Duke, our family's about to change in a really big way, and you're going to be a big brother, and your little brother's going to, when he first arrives, he's not going to be able to talk, he's not going to really be able to play, and Mama is going to be very much, full, and she's going to need to take care of him the same way she took care of you, and it's going to be really helpful if you help us, when we have chores and tasks to do, and you can help us with your brother by, bringing us diapers and, basically getting him on the team, and we're very verbally straightforward with him, and we always have been. I think we probably always will be, and so he gets it. He already gets a shine in his eyes. When he talks about being a big brother, he's already proud of that role that he's about to take on. I mean, he has moments of, some petulant moments of not wanting to share the spotlight. We can already feel that happening a little bit, but for the most part, he's engaged. He's aware for sure.
Do you have siblings?
I do. I have one little brother, and I'm actually flying home to my parents today, and I'll see him again. So.
What was that like for you when you were a kid?
When I was young, it was fantastic. He was 3.5 years younger than me, and in my memory, in my recollection, we had a very just loving and fun relationship. Like, he was like, I remember him being annoying and doing shit to like bug me, but we did everything together. We played sports, we played golf, we always played basketball. I grew up in a very small town in North Dakota, and it was a very sort of insulated way to grow up, and it was a simple life, and we were close, we were tight, and that's what it was.
When did you first kind of see yourself as a man, or whatever it meant to be a man?
Yeah. That's such a good question. I feel it's been a multi-staged process, or maybe a layered process, right? I think that I became an independent being in my sophomore year of college. I spent a year in Europe and really just stepped away. And I feel like that was a big awakening. I mean, it was a big awakening, and I feel like that was a step toward manhood, and just a recognition that I was an independent operator, and I could, basically do things that I wanted and go for it. But I certainly don't feel that was like a full man. I think the next sort of layer would have been after college. I started to work in the wilderness with young men and started to guide struggling teens, all young men, on these big wilderness expeditions for therapeutic purposes. And again, I feel like I started to do my own work, my own healing, my own learning at that stage. So that was like, 22 to 26. Still, though, not a man. Certainly not. Like striving to be one, for sure. Curious about what that meant. Really open to mentors. I had really strong mentors every step of the game, which was really important. I think maybe when I was 27 or 28, I had moved to New York City. I was a high school teacher, and I really got fucked up for a while. I got overly stressed. I think my being unconscious about a lot of things really caught up to me in my late 20s and kind of blew my life up for a while. And I think something about the sort of hitting rock bottom and that seemed like the end to an era. And then there seemed like a couple years of, just finding myself, learning, like finding myself. So I think the backside of that, I was probably 31 or 30, and I found myself like, okay, I got me. I'm online. I'm here. I definitely know more what it means to be a man, to be responsible. Still, though, I wouldn't say I arrived. I got married a couple years later. I don't think I arrived, and I think this is the stock answer a lot of men will give you. But I do think that when I became a father, it was like the full down loud. It's like, all right, man, fully that. But it's such an interesting thing. I'd love to hear your feedback, because there's this idea that women are born women, but men have to earn the right to be a man, to be called a man. And I think there's something really interesting there, because from a biological perspective, I mean, you draw a line wherever you want. When I was sexually, physically mature, I'm a man, right? And I feel like that's that. And when we run retreats and we run workshops, that's one thing that I like to give to our men immediately. It's like, listen, in this space right now, you're a man. I don't care what the hell your situation is. I don't care what you do. I don't care what you've done. I don't care where you are. You're a man. Get used to it. Just like you don't have to come in here and prove your validity to be an adult human being. It's fucked. That's kind of a fucked up, thing that's laying on men, has been laid on men. And, so yeah, I guess I feel I can go both ways about it. I can be like, I don't really quite feel like a man, but part of that's total bullshit too, because like what am I trying to prove, and who am I trying to prove it to? I can tell you right now, I feel far more mature. I'm 36. I have a family. I have a lot of responsibility. I certainly am far more mature than I was when I was 22. But at the same time, like, I don't feel like I need to degrade that man. That 22-year-old man was a 22-year-old man. Like, it's interesting. Like, there is this cultural phenomenon. Maybe it's deeper than culture. I don't know. But there is a curious. In one hand, it's good. We need to go through some sort of gateway that says, okay, we're a man. But on the other hand, it can be really negatively impactful for a lot of men to have this ambiguous, amorphous goal that seems to be somewhat laid on you as a trip from outside, but also becomes internalized into this really easy way to feel shitty about yourself. So
what I'm hearing is almost this choice or decision or state of mind in deciding that regardless where you are a man, and that being the foundation, because the way that we look at man or woman is becoming. And perhaps it should be the starting point. In that, when you already are, you then begin your journey to yourself.
Exactly. And so beautiful. You led me right to it. So if I had to give any definition of what it means to be a man, if I could change the definition, if I could, and I don't even want to give one, but if I had to, it would be this. It would be that when you surrender to being yourself fully, the more you are you, the more of a man you are. I mean, that's just, and I think even using the word man there, it complicates shit. We have so many things overlaid on that term. So, like, I don't use the word masculinity in my work. I don't. It's too fucking it's too confused. It's messy. It means too much. The moment anyone labels anything as masculine, men will innately want to be that thing or think they need to be that. There will be a pull toward it. It just happens. I don't think we're clear of that at all. And so I agree. I think it is. It's a surrender to yourself. What like pulling back all the gunk and just being you all the way.
So I want to understand better this idea and movement to surrender into yourself, because it is so much of trusting that process and trial and error and being open to and vulnerable for the experience that is unforeseen and unknown, and seeing what aligns and what doesn't. However, without guidance, I would assume it to be very difficult to navigate, and I use these words loosely, right and wrong.
Yeah.
So you mentioned mentors earlier. Let me frame it this way. If there is someone who is listening to this, and I don't necessarily think this is a man or, a woman question, it's a human question, someone who identifies as human and then wants to return to self. What does that journey look like? How do they take the first step?
Yeah, that was a well-framed question. So I think very importantly, the first thing that comes to mind is that it is by nature a process in context and in community with other people, because that is the human basis. Like I don't mean that none of this happens on your own, because some of it does, but this whole independence thing that we're doing as humans right now, it's pretty new, right? Like to a level, like we are tribal creatures. You go to the plains of Africa, or you go out in the woods and you see some primates. Are you seeing one at a time? No, they are a group. That is like the baseline level for what a healthy social primate does. It is completely in the context of safety through the community, through the tribe, through the pack, through the whatever you call it. So I believe that finding yourself, like you absolutely could go climb up into a mountain range and sit in a cave and meditate for years. You will find yourself, right? I'm not discounting that potential, but I think the direct and the fast way to surrendering to who you are is to show up and sit across from other people of various, like men, women, old, young, rich, poor, black, white, all the things, and sit down. And the process that we use at EVRYMAN, the thing that I believe in more than anything, is 3 simple steps. Is you slow the hell down, and I mean really slow down. When you're with people, you slow down. You begin to feel what's true for you in your body, and you be very specific. So starting with the somatic in the body, like what is your body telling you? And the emotional, what do you feel? These really simple questions. What do you feel? What do you want? And then you take the risk to share that with somebody else. And that's, to me, it's like the physics of human connection. It's how humans are able to feel and resonate, be seen and be heard and then in that context, and it doesn't always have to be that way. So I look back in my life and I had all these mentors, and my first one was a Taekwondo instructor when I was a kid. We never talked about life. He never gave me direct advice, but we just kind of did life together, right? Like I just had this human connection to him that was important to me, and I admired who he was. He to me, I was this starry-eyed little boy, and this guy was like, he drove a sports car and like a motorcycle and like shotguns. He's just like a cool guy, right? And he brought a lot of value. He trained me physically and, brought these, he basically turned this meek, shy, chubby little introvert into a strong, confident badass. Anyway, that's one example, but I think classically or organically, a mentor is just someone you connect to naturally, and you admire something or many things about them, and they care for you, and there's a two-way caring relationship. And I like from Mike, the Taekwondo instructor, I got confidence. From my next mentor, who was my boss, I worked at a pig farm with this guy. He taught me how to work hard. He gave me that experiential lesson. He never sat me down and said, "Hey, Dan, you you got to work harder. Be like, no, he just worked hard and I did it with him, And my next mentor was in college, and he was a professor that I mentioned that I went to Europe. I studied abroad for a year in Europe, and he was just this amazing adventurer. And I ended up going to Ecuador with him and his wife, and he just opened my eyes. He's like, dude, you can go anywhere and do anything. Adventure, any mountain in the world you want to go do it. And so what I love about sharing those stories is that it was blissfully unintentional, right? It just happened. And I love that. And I also have now, stepped into this place in life and this role where I think we do need to be intentional about it. I think we do need to locate communities, individuals, places. Well, maybe we don't need to, but we certainly can. It's an option, right? And I think that there's a lot of communities, EVRYMAN just being one of them, where you can walk into it with the intention of, who am I? I want to be more of me. I want to find out what the hell is going on here. I want to be able to support my loved ones better. I want to be a better, I want to work better. I want to bring more to the world. And so I think it's really important you can do that now.
I want to circle back to you talking about the journey of coming to yourself or arriving at yourself. So in accessing stillness, in feeling what your body is giving off in that moment, in sharing that, so being vulnerable, in telling some story that aligns with that, which I would assume releases some sort of trauma as well, in trusting another with your story, in having that other hold space without judgment and perhaps just listening, not giving advice. So those are like the steps, the first initial steps of the snowball going down the hill, right? Then what?
Iterate. You keep doing it. You build those muscles, and then you start applying them throughout your life, wherever you go.
Because then what happens?
Well, what has happened for me has been this really beautiful sense of freedom, connection, safety, purpose, love, meaning. I mean, what I feel in some ways was that, let's say that my energy is finite, and I spend 5% of my energy holding back one thing I'm ashamed of. And then I spend 15% of my energy, I feel like we walk around with, backpacks on just filled with weight of just things we're not okay with, or we're afraid other people aren't okay with, or whatever it is. And so I think that, it's a process. It's not like, I don't think there's maybe ever an end. There probably is never an end to it, but it's just like, well, if anybody's ever carried a heavy backpack for a long time, and then you take, this is what I used to do for a living, literally, and you take it off at the end of the day, it's the most liberating, beautiful feeling. And so what I'm incredibly grateful for is that, well, let me give one example. When I was a producer, when I was in that world before I started EVRYMAN, I loved what I did to a point. It was very exciting, and I could only bring about 30% of the DOTY to the table. The rest of it wasn't wanted or appreciated, or there wasn't really, at least that was my belief. Maybe that's not true. But I felt like I held back who I was and what I cared about, and I spent most of my life in this role, right? I was at work more than anywhere else. I spent more time with these people than anyone else at that time. And I remember coming home and I'd be like, you know what? I would love to have a work environment. If I'm going to spend so much of my life at work, wouldn't it be amazing to have an environment where I could be myself all the way, and I would truly love and care for and honor and be honored by all the people that I work with, right? Like, how amazing would that be?
Mm-hmm.
And so today I'm there, right? Like, so I have this nuclear family that is so wide open and honest and loving. And my larger family, so my parents, it's been open to that. I had a huge opening with my dad this year where it's just changed the dynamic in our larger family all the way. And my work environment and scenario, my work community is like, it's incredible. It's just incredible. And my friends, all the people I'm surrounded with, like, there's been the willingness to truly connect, And the tenor and the texture of my life with this, it's unbelievable. It's just unbelievable. Like I am so lucky to have and lucky and grateful for I don't even know what the words are for it. It's just that
it's almost like the freedom and ability to be you wholly. Yeah.
And there's still places where that's not possible, and I think that's exciting to me. Like, I'm starting to become a speaker. I'm starting to get on stages. I'm starting to, kind of put myself out there in the world in a bigger way. And each time I do, it's like, oh, can I be myself here, right? Can I do it in that way? Can I do it here? And it's scary, but it's exciting. And it's the unknown, right? It's like we can put on masks, we can put on armor, and go out in the world and be okay. But, to me, the scary and exciting thing is like, well, here's me all the way. I'm going to go step out into that scary shit, see if it works,
So I'm very similar in this sense. However, I grapple with the realities of the world, one of them being financial. And when you talk about your work as a producer and being 30% of yourself, whether or not it's because they didn't want the rest of you or that was a perception of yours, doesn't matter. I think a lot of times in corporate America, if you will, the company's not looking for your truth and your wholeness. They're looking for you to perform.
Yeah.
So how does someone who hasn't yet found their purpose and or does not have the ability financially to leave a job which pays for mortgage, loans, etc., also practice their journey of becoming themselves when they have to be 30% of themselves on a daily basis?
Yeah, that's a great question. My initial gut answer is just small steps and continued progress in the direction that you want to go. Like, I think that every little bit is a win. If you make one more friend that you're close with and open with and all the way, that adds to your momentum, right? If you find one more community of people doing things that you feel passionate about and you take the risk to join that, or you start to build these purposeful things on the side. You take risks, you go try new things and open yourself up. And I think it doesn't have to be all the way ever, really. I think you could have a job that, so maybe, you could work on bringing 40% rather than 30 and then 50, but maybe this job is so damn good, it pays you so much damn money that, it creates the space to dive into what you love. And it's interesting. So I work with guys one-on-one as a coach also, and I just had a call yesterday with a guy that I have been working with for a while, and he came on one of our wilderness expeditions, and he's been in a job for 22 years. It's a good job. It's a good gig. He lost his wife many years ago and has been a single father. And, for most of his job and his career, like, it was 100% the best choice and the right thing for everyone. He needed security. He needed to be able to be there for his wife and then his son, and I think that life has a way of happening, right? And so now he's at a point where it's no longer okay. It doesn't quite feel as okay anymore, and he's starting to have that itchy feeling of like, and so I think that's, I mean, one of my bigger issues in life has always been being impatient, and what I like about setting yourself up to have places to slow down and to get in touch with what you're feeling is that as you let yourself feel what's happening more and more, it starts to naturally prompt the change that you're looking for, right? So like, I don't know if does that make sense? Does that come across clear?
Yeah. May I add? It's almost like in the same lane, what you said earlier about if this job pays this well, and you just see it for what it is and use what it provides to explore other parts of your life. Totally. And so the power of one meaningful conversation creates so much energy and abundance that it attracts more. And so as you're doing what you have to do, and I think that's something that's been lost, especially in the younger generation, where there's no longer this I have to do it. It's more about, I need. And that's just not how humanity works. There are so many things that responsibility. But when you take care of your responsibilities and you also allocate time and energy and space to create that abundance, even in the smallest ways, it starts moving and shifting the energy so that those things that you were seeking before just start to appear for you.
I don't know, we don't have to go here if you don't want, but what it brings up for me, speaking of the unknown, I've been spending a lot of time really thinking about the future on a larger scale. And it's interesting that the studies and reports that are coming out about how many of our jobs, our human jobs, are going to be no longer necessary in the fairly near term future. I mean, in terms, like, I think this whole thing we're freaked out about our jobs right now. Oh, this isn't the right one. I mean, what happens when the jobs go away? Talk about the end. What the fuck are we gonna do then? Like I think we're gonna find like, oh man, maybe that job wasn't exactly fully expressed for me, but I tell you what, it sure gave me something to do. It gave me a purpose. I mean, I think we're headed for a big unknown shift in what all this means, and I'm curious, and I'm wondering if what many of us are going through now are some sort of preparation for that. I mean, I don't know.
I often say when people bring up the question of what is my purpose, and it comes up a lot, I'm not one to say don't think about it, or maybe you don't have one. It's more about, we are so privileged at this point. I'm hearing that feedback. There we go.
Yes, sorry,
it's okay.
My mic's okay.
We're so privileged at this point that we've forgotten how quickly we would forget about these extracurricular questions. Should there be something really, really impactful that occurred that stripped everything away? And the only reason that I see that now is because of my rock bottom, which was nearly losing my life to an eating disorder. And in recognizing that health, along with everything else in life, is not permanent, but in that way, the one thing that I strive for is just that, which is feeding myself, the most primal and infant like task, and so the passion and the purpose kind of falls by the wayside. And again, not saying that it's not in my life and I don't have one, but it actually ends up being magnified when you're not forcing or so focused on it, and see it more in a space of gratitude versus need.
Mm-hmm.
So
Absolutely.
To your point, I think it will definitely be an interesting shift here, on many levels. One in which is, how will we deal with the loss of jobs, period? Also, how will we deal with the effects of technology and social media, and the ways in which it is rewiring and changing our brains, and how we communicate with one another?
Yeah, I just keep having this thought, so I'll just say it.
Please.
My meditation tradition is through a school called Dharma Ocean, and the spiritual director is a guy named Reggie Ray. And I think the most impactful thing I've ever felt or heard on this idea of purpose or whatever is that he'll often say that at the very core, the only purpose we all have is just to be ourselves. On this planet, in these lives, really when it comes down to it, it's feeling, being, and expressing our self to the most core, all the way fundamental level. And I like that a lot. It makes sense to me. I feel that truth of that as I say it and feel it. I also think it's not necessarily too helpful in a practical sense for a lot of people.
Perhaps.
But because I think it is a question of, and I think we're looping back to the whole process of how do you find yourself? How do you develop this understanding of who you are? And I just say the best word in the world to me is surrender, right? It's surrendering and not thinking that. I mean, for me, it's really interesting. I have these moments where I don't really know what's going on because I feel like we all have this sense that we're so in control of things, of our lives, of who we are, what we do. And I feel like if you lean back into the river and just surrender into what's happening, it's a very different reality.
I think a lot of people confuse or misconstrue the word meaning surrender into this idea of laziness. Meaning when you surrender and you kind of, as I'm imagining you saying, pushing back or pulling back and kind of going with the current.
Yeah. How
do you know that you're not lazy and therefore will be on the lazy river?
That's so good. Well, practically speaking, feedback from other people, honest feedback, get a head check or a gut check from other folks. But I think we have most of if we can listen to it, we're equipped with internal sensors that would say, hey, you're really just, you're slacking off. But on the other sense, this is interesting. I think there's a very honest argument to be made that busyness is actually laziness. Busyness is just imagine that life is this thing. I want to make a t-shirt that says, we don't live life, it lives us, bitches. If we're actually aware of what's going on, I feel like we can, the harder work, I think, the bigger work is to let go more, is to surrender, right?
Yeah.
It's not only that. It doesn't mean stop putting effort out, but we're fucking obsessed with effort. We're obsessed with work. I love the river analogy, right? And I've spent a lot of time on rivers, and a very beautiful, elegant way to travel is to get on a raft or a boat and float the river and look out ahead of you and see where it's going, and you steer, but you don't have to necessarily exert everything. The modern way to travel is to build a machine and pour gasoline into it and fucking turn that fucker around and go upstream and go downstream and go side, like anywhere you want, right? Like that's like the egoic way. I think that, I mean, I could just speak from my own experiences. As I attempt to surrender more, I'm actually working harder than I ever have, but it's not stressful. I mean, I've put immense amounts of time and energy into EVRYMAN, but I fucking love every second of it. You know, it feels, you know, it's like I'm not going against the river. I'm going with it, and yeah, so I'm dipping in the paddle, or I'm, you know, pushing some gas to shape it, but I don't know. That is a big fear, isn't it? To be lazy. So many people are afraid of being seen as lazy, or I don't know. Maybe they are lazy. I don't know. I don't know that many lazy people, though. Honestly, couple, I guess.
And I think the other one that would come up to mind for certain people would be, okay, I've surrendered. I'm floating. I'm observing. At which point do I need to place the rudder into the river and to change direction or course correct or maybe stop? When do I place action into my surrender? And how do I know if I'm right or wrong?
Well, I'm just going to give this simple answer again, and I really believe that community and honest feedback and like, because I'll get into it a little bit more. I'll just use an EVRYMAN group as an example. So I went to my group last night, right? And what happens in terms of feedback is very natural, and we are so close to what's going on with us that we can't see everything really clearly. We just can't. I would hope that people would at least think that's partially true, because I mean, just it's confusing. It's confusing to be in my mind, right? I mean, it's just like a billion different things, you know, ideas, directions, feelings. It's very confusing. But when we get into our groups and we slow down, and everybody, like, so say it's my turn to share, and I start diving in, and everybody just faces me to pay attention. And we're not just paying attention from a mental level. We're relaxing, and this ability to feel and pick up on nonverbal cues from other people is really remarkable. I think it's something that we've only begun to truly understand, to tap into, and be able to access. But you know, it's known in folk wisdom. They say that, you know, only a small percentage of communication is verbal, right? The rest of this nonverbal is huge. But so, for example, I'm flying home to be with my family this weekend, and had some stuff had some feelings about, and I won't go into details about it, but through the process of like 10 or 15 minutes of me sharing, the guys in my group were able to simply say, hey, when you talked about this part of your story here, I feel like you really left a bunch of stuff out. Like you kind of just skipped right over it, but I felt something when you said that. He said, would you go back there and explore a little more? And I did, and it was just like an epiphany. It was just like, I just started to follow that path a little bit, and like my mind opened, my body, it's just like, holy shit, this is the thing underneath the surface that's driving so much of my confusion. This is the thing that I've been feeling but didn't know I was feeling. It's the thing I've been feeling but wasn't saying, or I was either scared to say it or I didn't know how. And it's so simple. That process is really simple, and it works that same way. Like, we got a guy in the group who's applying for new jobs, and this is a new thing. It's something he's wanted to do for a really long time, but he's scared to do it. Has been scared to do it. But it's amazing. In the course of 7 or 8 weeks that we've been meeting and sitting together, you know, it's just this simple, like, he wants it so bad, but he doesn't let himself really want it all the way enough to push it. There's fear, there's all this stuff, but we can sit there as guys who care for him and literally come there just to support each other, to support him. It's like, whoa, man, like, when you talk about what you want versus the fear of it, like we're able to really just like reflect back what we feel, and it's so powerful. It's subtle. It's not complicated. But so I think that it's this type of relating where you can get to the heart of the matter in a really direct way. And so and it becomes a way to measure, right? So like, yeah, when do I take action now? Do I stop now? I think that this amazing evolution of humans as pack animals, I think we can tap into that. We can tap into each other. And, I mean, for me, honestly, my barometer is my wife more than anything. I mean, my group too, I have plenty of people to go to, but when I'm not sure about something, I immediately take it to Elise. I'm like, hey, I'm really confused about this. Would you just give me your feelings about it? And she's sharp as shit. She's, analytically smart. She can see, but she can also drop into like an intuitive level. And just how does the general feeling of that feel? And I go to people constantly, I mean, I also have learned to trust my own gut, right? Like I literally spend time, listening to my gut, listening to my heart. Like, what is the yes or no to this? But I think you hone that by checking it against other people's, right? And it is a surrender to trusting that there's more going on than just my thoughts, right? Like one of my guys recently said to me, he's like, I've just learned to listen to more things than just what's going on in my head. And yeah.
I want to tie a bow on what you said, because I think it's important for people to understand that in speaking and trusting and giving permission for others to listen and to kind of fact check you and field check you, it uncovers layers that you have yet to uncover, and you have these, for lack of a better word, aha moments. And the more that you do that, the quicker the aha happens, and the less frequently you'll need to access others so that you can trust yourself. Cool. So 2 questions surface from what you're talking about, from the world of non-believers. One is, why do I need a group when I have a therapist?
Well, maybe you don't. I don't know. You tell me, non-believer. I mean, yeah, you might not. I don't know. Are you getting the support and the feedback you need? I mean, maybe you are. You tell me. If you want me to argue, though, this is what I'd say, and that would be that a therapist is... I have a therapist. I generally have a therapist. I love working with therapists. And what I believe deep down is that we all have the capacity to be there for each other on far deeper levels than we're accustomed to doing. It's just in an innate human ability. And the ability to do that with and for people that you don't just segment for 1 hour on this sort of formal level, but to have that with your lover, to have that with your brother, to have that with your father, to have that with your best friends. It's different. It's different. And so I work as a coach, right? But I'm not a therapist, and I'm very clear with my guys. Like, we are shoulder to shoulder here. We are not like yes, I'm in the role of facilitator and guide here, but listen, I'm a fucking dude, and I'm going through my own shit, and I don't have everything figured out, and that is built into our understanding and our agreement together. And for some people, that's a far more comfortable approach than somebody who went and got a goddamn master's degree to, learn how to talk to you. And so I'm a really big proponent of teaching people to fish, right? And that we can actually Actually, again, I have all the respect in the world for therapists. I've thought about being one many times in my life, and I like the grassroots approach. It works for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then the second one would be more in line. I think men would probably. Okay, so I think some men who are not conscious men, might say, like, talking about my feelings? No way.
Yeah.
And then, so I'd like you to address that, but then the second side of it would be this movement of women who are really interested in bashing men at the moment and pushing them all into the space of assholes, rapists, monsters, etc. So what would be your response to both of those sides? And then I have a way of where I'd like to go after that.
Yeah, I think a response that addresses both at once is that I've spent the last couple of years solely diving deep to see and feel and experience what men actually are all the way down. And unequivocally, with no exceptions, every man that I know wants to be loved and to love and to have meaning in his life and to care for others and be cared for. And the humanity of men, like the straight up fucking humanity of men, is something that we've been ignoring or pushing aside or suppressing, both men and women, right? And I'd say the humanity of women too, right? So it's not just, it's both. I would say in general, we've been suppressing like the deep humanity of each other and ourselves. So, but in the context of men, and for a man who thinks that, I get it. First of all, yeah, being emotional and accessing that part of yourself is about as scary as it gets, honestly. Like, I've never been super interested in like jumping off cliffs or doing like adrenaline, like, but diving inside, it has the same level of fear. It does. Like, getting honest both with yourself and other people. You want an extreme sport, you fucking find one that's scarier than that for a lot of men. And what I would say to men is, yeah, I mean, listen, nobody's holding a gun to your head, dude. You don't have to do this. But I can tell you from experience that it is the lowest hanging fruit in you developing and in your growth as a human being. It might be one of the scariest, but it is one of the most close at hand and impactful things you can do as a man today. And I'm gonna lay a trip out there too, is that like this is fundamentally part of all of this shit that's going on. The Me Too, the issue, the fact that women are bashing men, the suicide rate, the mental health crisis, the opioid, like you fucking name it, and men not being fully human is, in my view, and this is a little bit simplified, but it's core. It's fundamental to what's happening. And I mean, if things are gonna like get better, if things are gonna evolve, I think it's absolutely going to. Part of that is going to be men stepping up and getting honest and opening up and softening and surrendering. Right. And here's the other thing I tell you is that you can still be a tough guy. You can still fucking make a lot of money. You can still be you. It doesn't take that away. It's not an either or. It's not black and white. But it's like when really think about it. Like if you want to go be a badass at work, do it. But then when you come home and, maybe you have a family or you have a loved one, like, well, fucking A, shouldn't you be able to learn how to slow down and really connect and love these people, and really give them what they need, because at some point it is dangerous. Dangerous, maybe that's a little strong, but it's
I I don't know
It
that
is
that's strong.
It is hurting the world. It is.
Yeah.
It's hurting the world if we don't do it. The
Yeah.
more we repress shit in, the less healthy we are, and the more harm we're gonna do. I think it's that simple.
Yeah, it's the more reactive we are, and actually, ironically, out of control.
Exactly.
So
And there's just last thing I want to say is there's very clear neuroscience that supports this all the way. Is that when we don't manage and feel and accept our emotions and what we feel, we get dumber, we get less creative, we get less able to collaborate with others, and it's considered a maladaptive trait to be emotionally illiterate. It's maladaptive. It's not good for you. It's not good for anybody.
I would be doing a disservice to the many women who attend my workshops in their curiosity and misunderstanding of men and their needs and desires from women, because what I often see are many single people who are looking for relationships but are unable to attain one. It's not about attaining, really. In my view, it's a lack of communication and speaking your truth and needs. So the question would be then, what do you hear, if you're able to share, the men who attend your retreats and workshops talk about in regards to women, and how can we be of service too? Because I think it takes two to dance this dance. So how can we help and facilitate and provide space for the collective healing of humanity?
Mm-hmm. So the question is, what do I hear men sharing about women?
Mm-hmm.
Everything, all possibilities. But the strongest, biggest, most common tone or feeling is, I am so grateful. I have so much love. I don't know how to give it. I hope I'm doing this right. How can I be better? I feel stuck and unsure. I'm scared. I don't know how to do this. I'm scared. I don't know how to do this. I'm scared. I don't know how to do this. I think that comes up over and over. And there's also instances of anger, right? Unexpressed anger or shame, right? Especially around sexuality. And it's just this like, there's almost this, there's like a freeze state of just like, fuck, what do I do? There's all these desires and there's confusing. It's just like this. It's like a maelstrom of just like energy. It's just like, there's a lot of frozenness. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of confusion. There's a lot of how do I do this? How do I do this better? You know? Mm-hmm. And so what's awesome about what we do as men together, one of the questions that I love people asking is, why just men? Why just bring men together? And the answer is that I really feel like we need a space to learn the basics and to be able to learn to trust ourselves and be honest and be emotional so that we can even come to the table. Mm-hmm. So that because I think what we need in a bigger way is for men and women to come to the table fully, openly, with love. And I think we have some work to be able to do that well, honestly. Mm-hmm. So it's complicated.
So how can women aid in this?
I mean, I would say, look into what men are doing in some of these movements, like EVRYMAN, and ask questions, look into it. A lot of times, some of our biggest referral sources are women. Women, men come back from what we do, and the women in their lives see it and feel it, and they tell everyone they know. I mean, I think that maybe understanding that how scary it is for a man to step into this is helpful. But then also, I would say with that same one, I think women are in a great place to say, all right, this has got to happen, guys. You like this. I need you to do this, and you're going to do it. I feel like that is really helpful, and and a willingness to just, again, come to the table and meet a man where he is, and I think that's what, if I could snap my fingers and kind of change something about this whole thing, I would like to cut to the chase. I would love it if some of this initial work could just get done, and we could come to the table and meet each other where we are, fully, openly, honestly.
So where we are, I think that is where the fear stems from. Because oftentimes we're at different places in our personal evolution, and major fears for people are rejection, abandonment, being too much, not enough. And so, if I'm hearing you correctly, it's ensuring that you're doing your own personal work so that you can remain grounded in your truth and your story, and to not shy away if a door closes on you, and then remain standing if the door does open for you. And what follows after that is probably a really difficult conversation, because it's allowing yourself to be fully seen. So I know you probably, and correct me if I'm wrong, feel confident that we can get there.
I mean, individually, sure. Collectively, I don't know if I'm confident. I mean, I think it's possible. It's certainly possible. It does. It's a monumental. I think if we did get there collectively, it would be like a very fucking different world we'd live in. And so I think we're talking about something much bigger than maybe we're aware of, or I'm even aware of, right? Like that level of shift, that level of growth, that level of maturity would fundamentally transform what's happening today.
So before I get to the last set of questions here that I ask everybody, the last unknown that you kind of mentioned, which I find so interesting, is where every man is going to go. And to me, it's not funny and like, haha, laughing at you, but cute, I guess is the word, that in the most respectful way, that you're so passionate and so made for this, like so born to do this, and the energy in your body and the way that you sit and you talk change when you're speaking about every man, that it seems like a no-brainer that this is just going to continue to evolve into places that of course are unknown, but there's no clear end in sight, because it's an epidemic of sort. Does that alleviate the unknown when I say it that way, or is there still?
It makes me feel good. Yeah, I feel affirmed, and so that's the amazing thing, is since we've actually started this, that's really the only feedback we've got from every single direction. There's affirmation everywhere, always constant, and so that way for sure. Yeah, and I appreciate, and I agree. I am confident that this will, not just fizzle out in the dive. And the need is so clear and pressing and massive, right? But in an honest sense, we talked earlier a little bit about the practical meeting the other, and turning something into a sustainable business model that works is scary and not sure, right? There is a lot of unknown. And this is my first true experience as an entrepreneur and a business owner, and it's fucking scary. It's super scary. It's like, I had a job before, right? And obviously that's not capital S secure all the time either, but on a base sort of survival level for myself and my family, it's super scary. More than that. It's like...
Anything else you want to add before I get to the end?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
No.
So these last questions are ones that I ask of everybody. And the first one is, in the space of stillness, so when we access stillness, there is a certain kind of silence. And so my question is, what do you hear in that silence?
I'm not an auditory guy as much as I am a somatic guy. So I feel, what I feel in silence and stillness is a wild endlessness and a warmth, a familiarity, like a paradox of familiarity and holy shit. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
How do you let go?
I practice. How do I let go? Well, I mean, I have my formal methods, which is a meditation practice, which is completely about letting go. So I feel like, I tend to that. But moment by moment in life is I let go by staying as present as I can to what is actually happening and develop the ability to trust that. And so, that's such a good question. So I actually want to back up and answer it a little bit differently. Mm-hmm. There is a subtlety that I can feel physically in my gut, in my chest, basically, I can feel when I put resistance up to something. It's like if you could see my body, it's a clenching, it's a tightening, right? And I think we work the muscles of tightening and closing endlessly. It's what we do. It's always strive, push the contraction is what we exercise. But I think that with a little bit of awareness and subtlety, it's literally like I'm flexing my bicep now, and then I just stop doing it and I let it out, and it's this feeling of relief. It's pleasurable. It's the other direction. It's the other direction from contracting, and I feel like that can be manipulated through a very body, through your body, like really, and that's kind of. It's kind of what I'm all about is so I feel something's happening, and I notice that my chest goes, mm-hmm. And so, check in really quick, and I'd be like, okay, can I loosen that a little bit? Just be like, maybe exhale, whatever it is. But mine is very subtle, but it is physical, and I'm like, okay, I'm okay, and I like unclench the bicep of what's happening. Right? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. What is your deepest desire?
To be so fully alive that all things happen at once. So that everything, I always joke that I'd have a tattoo. If I ever got a tattoo, I don't have any, I would get those 3 words on my 3 fingers, all at once. I would like to experience the totality of all that exists in one single moment.
That scares me.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. That might be your extreme sport right there.
Yeah, I think so.
Wow. Okay, I need to think about that when we end this. Last 2. What are you responsible for?
My impact on the world, my impact on others, at this point, a healthy and loving and sustainable baseline for my children. to care for my wife with as much tenderness as I can, to responsible to be myself and bring what I have to the world, I guess. Yeah.
And lastly, if you can fill in this statement, Alyonka, you really should be asking this. What do you feel I should be asking?
Alyonka, you really should be asking... Wow, that's a good one. What should you be asking? You should be asking what you're afraid to ask.
What are you afraid to ask?
You or anyone?
Your choice.
What am I afraid to ask? I'm afraid to ask if... good. So I don't know if I have a specific question, but I know it's harder for me to ask women questions than it is to ask men. Because, I feel like in general I have a low grade fear of women's truth more than I do of men's.
That's so interesting. I really want to unpack that. But we're up for time, so perhaps at one point we can record something else along the lines of that. I would be curious to engage in a conversation about women from that perspective too. And I just wanted to make one note that it's really inspiring and exciting to see you light up when there's a challenging question and or one that you have to consider before you answer, because it's somewhat of an unknown, which makes like perfect sense and full circle moment of you talking about the unknown in this like adventure and being excited about it versus fear.
It's that extreme sport thing. It really is.
Yeah.
I love that. So, yeah, cool.
Thank you so much for doing this. It was a total pleasure to just be able to really access the space and trust both of our intuitions and each other. And I think it will be really educational for so many people. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, very much appreciated.
Cool. I'm going to press stop here.